Okay, next up we've got a Plat 5 Illari code from Jericho. This game sort of felt like it wasn't too bad from the start. We defended, managed to get all 3 points in overtime, so we felt confident in our ability to do the same, and then we just get full held. I haven't seen you do an Illari VOD yet. I do plan on doing a video. I'm sort of waiting for some pro POVs to come out to sort of get some points across, but I am keen on putting out an Illari video soon based on my opinions on her, so keep an eye out for that. But you were mainly looking to get thoughts on pylon positioning, that's a massive part of her, and use of her abilities. Also ignore the fact that they completely changed her ult so it doesn't go through shields anymore. Should interact you. Oh yeah, fair enough. Okay, so pylon positioning. Basically, I did look at this code beforehand, still going along with this new format I'm trying where I sort of find the timestamps throughout your VOD that I need to sort of get my point across and figure out what the exact problem is beforehand. So I do know what happens in the code, and pylon positioning I agreed was like probably a big area of focus, because it requires proactive positioning. Now again, take my feedback with a grain of salt, because the hero is still new and everyone is still figuring it out, including myself. So this is my personal take on the hero. Not to say it's not worth a damn thing, but everyone has their own opinions on the hero at the moment, and I don't think anything is necessarily wrong or necessarily right. But that being said, I think Illari's strengths are that she's very, I think when you break it down to her core fundamental power, it's that she demands a lot of resources to be dedicated to her to remove her from power positions, and she's very good in setting up in those power positions proactively. She struggles at taking aggression by herself, like forcing aggression and forcing aggressive positions, but if she can get them, she's very difficult to dislodge from them. And I think she's very similar in terms of Baptiste, where you're constantly trying to weave damage and healing together, and prioritize one or the other, but she's also more similar to Brig and Kiriko, where I think she finds a lot of value in assisting people on off angles, and being able to hold power positions and hold space. Now, this is actually a decent code to explain this, because both teams are playing sort of deathmatchy team compositions. This Ryan's going to swap to a diva himself soon, and the essence of both of these comps is going to be who can take angles better, and Route 66 is, apart from Third Point, is probably one of the better maps as well to explain this on, because right now you've got this point of contention. Actually, I'll swap colors here because you can't see that. Right now you've got this point of contention, and Route 66 has this obviously very powerful high ground up here, and then has the low ground as well that comes out here. Now, as Illari, however you pronounce it, you're going to be able to occupy this space really, really well. Or similarly, if I can rotate my screen just a fraction here, or this space, right? These are the two options, and pick them based off what you can see. Based on the fact that I have a Widow, this would obviously be a pretty trash position because you're very out in the open, so we'll stick with this one for now, right? So if you were holding this, and it'd be great if your cast was with you, if you were able to sit up here, throw a pylon in here, that is incredibly difficult for the enemy team to deny. They have to actually like physically commit to contesting this high ground, whether it's by somehow jumping up here or actually rotating up here, and then forcing you back. And ideally they would have to force you to drop a different way to your beacon. And this is where the proactive I called it beacon, sorry, pylon. This is where the proactive pylon positioning sort of comes into play, because if putting it here allows you to aggress not this way, but this way, because you're still cutting LOS if it's this way, off this corner. However, you don't ever really need to push out here, so this distance doesn't mean anything. So if you know the most you're going to push is to maybe here to get this angle down here, then you can subtract this distance that we talked about before, and you can add it onto the position of the pylon to maybe be all the way back here. What does that do? Is it makes it so that, I'll just get rid of it all. If we put the pylon back here instead of here, then when they aggress this way, you're still maintaining a front line where the pylon can't get broken, and you're taking this duel all the way until you get level with it. Then you break it, you rotate out, you place it here, and then the same thing happens, right? And the difference being that if you're playing here and then they contest this space and they push this space, they're able to break this the second they do that, right? Whereas you have a moment, and you could simply just jump off the edge here and then break it and then reposition. But this gives you, positioning up the pylon back here, gives you the option of just kiting this way and being able to still contest this entire zone, right? Because this option, jumping off, gives this up, and it gives up this angle as well. Not to mention the fact that they would have to get past you to break it, in which case they've really hard entered. And if your cast was up here too, if you can come with your cast to be up in this position, these positions, or your DPS in general, even your Hanzo should be like abusing his wall climb to constantly peek this and have an advantage against the Widow. But that'll just do wonders, and you'll see this a bunch of times throughout the map. Just positions like this to sort of keep in mind. If we use the rest of this point in the same way, looking at it from up here, if you were to do the same thing by throwing pylon here, right, you would then get pylon healing from this position, or anyone from this line backwards, right? Compared to throwing it up here, what does it do? It allows you to maybe extend up to here, but if you're pushing up to here, think about where the team fight is happening. If you're needing to push up to here to get an angle on the fight, the team fight's probably happening all the way back here. You're probably breaking and repositioning the pylon anyway. So on defense, it's quite tricky, because you have the space already, but it's the attacker's duty to alter that point of contention. And as your pylon's being placed, it's always trying to be used on that point of contention. And if that's always changing, you have to be really proactive in breaking it. And I think that's a huge part of like Illari players in general, is that they need to learn how to be constantly repositioning their beacon, rather than committing to a spot and then letting it break. I mean, some of it's tunnel vision, but that's the main thing I wanted to get across, is that thinking about where we can position and in general on the space, because right now we've got our pylon here and it's assisting the tank, which is like fine, like it can hit everyone in the team, but it doesn't need to, right? Because your beam can hit anyone in the team. The great thing about the pylon is it has a massive range. It can, one, be used to split your duties between like whoever you're with or where you are and the rest of your team. It can be used on yourself to allow you to play really aggressively and position aggressively, or it can be used with on the same angle with whoever you're with, so that you can put out more pressure offensively, like through damage. So those are the three main uses I see for it. But yeah, that's sort of a little bit on pylon positioning, and I'll get into a few more examples because like this is the first one in 1 minute, and we'll just watch some of the VOD now. I think part of this is your positioning as well. It might be just a little bit of lack of confidence in the hero that you're not playing as aggressively, but I think you need to have a DPS mindset when it comes to playing this hero. I think it helps a little bit in terms of you need to find your own angle, and it might be a bit more of a Zenyatta Baptiste thing. You need to find your own angle and get damage out. Even more of a Kiriko thing maybe. He gets antied, but like, see this soldier the whole time? A better soldier would just shoot and break this instantly. Like, this would just be gone. But instead he's sort of just trying to shoot you, not realizing that you're just getting pocketed by it. Your pylon is essentially going to be treated as a mercy would if you were a pharmacy duo. Like, it's always going to be focused first, so putting it in positions that are difficult to break make you difficult to kill or dislodge. And in that case, now we have a mercy, it's slightly different, but when you have an Ana, that's a massive amount of healing. You don't really need to like sit and babysit the tank. You can go and take these aggressive positions and enable your DPS and sort of play as a Kiri or a Brig in those scenarios. The next one was 236, which is oddly specific. Oh, this was the next one. See, like, this is a decent pylon position. Obviously, because they have to, it's difficult for them to break it, right? Like, even if they pushed out here, oh, you can't really see this color now. Go to yellow. Even if they pushed out here, it's difficult for them to see an angle on this, so they essentially have to pass this line to actually break it. So decent positioning, and as the pylon gets to like this point, that's when, as a Illari player, you would then break it, manually reposition it, whatever you want to do. If you're already in a position to throw it down somewhere, then you can just press shift again, or E, whatever it is, because you can't afford it to get broken. It's 8 seconds from when you place it. If you break it, it's just a little 2-second thing. Otherwise, you don't have to break it. You can just press E again and reposition it. But if it gets broken, or if you break it after it's been damaged, it's a 12-second cooldown. So it's massive, and it's really minor. It's a really minor thing if you're constantly breaking it. It does not really upset your rhythm too much. And depending on your other support will also depend how much damage and heals you can do, obviously. Now with a Mercy, you are playing more with your tank, but it's still a very mobile tank, so we can still look to play on these like slide off angles on the side rather than playing through main all the time. And that was why I think I timestamped this, is because it sort of just sits here the whole time, and we'll just watch from above. See, like this Genji up here is like got a really great angle, and if you were to put the pylon up here, I know their spawn is here, but for this team fight, when you know all of them are positioned in main because they just pushed it through, nobody's going to come up here. Nobody. And so this is the other, so before we would, using the same analogy as the tunnel before, you would say, put it here, and then if they push you, you rotate back, you're still getting healed by it, right? In this case, it's the opposite, because the angle that you're finding is, if they push, putting it up here, similar to how you bap lamp when a monkey is diving you, you have to throw it as far away from you as possible so that he can't tase you and the pylon in the same at the same time. You'd be throwing it up there because you need to kite this way. And this would still work as well, don't get me wrong, like that's fine as well. But I'm just saying you could abuse somewhere up here because you know they're not coming here. Like this still works equally well, if not better or as well. But this is also an option, throwing it up here and then sitting here. And the point being that you now enable your Genji to be able to sit up here as well. Even if you want to continue playing up here, throwing it here allows your team this whole space, right? Whereas right now it's uncontested. You mainly just occupy this space. And they don't have any vertically mobile heroes apart from D.Va. So this is really a good area to capitalize for you. Similarly, if you wanted to, you could be throwing it up here and then playing somewhere on this angle. A bit more exposed though, a bit more dangerous. Again, anywhere on the high ground as well can be a good location. But that's sort of the main thing I want to get across, is that you're also not breaking it is the issue, I think. Like this position's whatever, but then it gets destroyed, right? Like the card has already reached too far. If the soldier's able to push that, yeah, your D.Va left main, so like he was a bit uncontested, but the card is already so far up that you need to be more proactive in breaking it and repositioning it, because right now, like if we're frontlining, like this is no longer safe, right? But being able to sit up here with our outburst, or maybe having our angle be here and having Pylon be on this corner, or again up here, it's really difficult for them to break, and we're in a lot more of a safe position. So yeah. Another thing to note is that your damage, although it's a lot quicker of a charge, your damage charge is interrupted when you heal, whereas your heal is not interrupted by your damage. So a good way of finding that Baptiste weave is to be healing and make sure you're on top of your priorities, get your pylon set up, and then be using your heal and then look to damage, and then keeping people topped up instead of damaging, oh, I've got to heal them, and then turning to then go and heal them, having to use all of it, and then find a way to put out pressure until you get your healing back. Illari is very much about staying on top of things, and that's the whole point of her pylon as well, is that she needs to be proactive and ahead of things. If she's reacting too much, you're just going to fall behind the 8 ball, and there's people who can do that stuff better, like Baptiste, because he'll react with a lamp or something like that. You're not reacting with a pylon. You need to set up and start anticipating how the team fight's changing. And so this is good, right? Like turning to heal the D.Va. You don't have a mercy, so you should be like really on your heal duties right now. But in general, if this D.Va is falling below her armor threshold, it's going to make our job really difficult to keep her up. D.Va's gonna feed in a mech. That's unlucky. Maybe we just die here. I had more timestamps, but they're not for a while, so I'm just gonna speed through this a little bit and check that I didn't miss anything. Going for about 20 minutes anyway, so. Now rolling out here, pylon positioning. We can throw it back here, right? If we're going to position on the high ground, which is quite a nice position because there's only 2 people who can contest us up here, and we can have up to 4 of our team members up on this high ground. If we throw pylon back here, difficult for them to break because they need to get LOS of it. But also, when they push you, they have to push deeper to break it, / turn their attention away from you. This is the same sort of concept. Same as if you're positioning here, you could maybe like throw it against this wall. So then it's healing that. But I think throwing it somewhere like here is also increasing the potential range to your teammates. Whereas here would be more of a selfish thing. Again, you're sort of stuck now. A Mercy's not great into this team comp because there's no one for her to really pocket, but she would probably be sticking with you or the Genji, so you should be looking to support your D.Va as well. Probably not great to have dropped here because we don't have our abilities. May have saved him though. Careful about ulting right in front of a D.Va, does get eaten. The boop isn't too severe either, so don't rely on that as a use for it. A little bit of a 1v1 with the Genji. Right, and see how annoying that was? Like, Illari is great at being able to survive these dives and 1v1s because it's so difficult for flankers and assassins to turn and deal with the pylon and not be dead or forced out or have to use cooldowns on it before they can even take the 1v1 with her. It's insane, especially with the support passive, like, and the outburst. Like, she's really, really unkillable in a 1v1. We've done well to just sort of live through this whole fight, so I think this is fine. Like, obviously it might be better to have had more aggressive moments. Hitting his shots now, so this is all clean. Yeah, very nice. But in that scenario, I think the mission was just to survive and got the job done. Free fight with the nano blade. The only thing I would have said would, besides, you know, obviously ult tracking and expecting it, is that we were playing a really like close quarters position because they were able to just like get to here and then close this distance really quickly. It could be worth, now you have the positioning, to set up a pylon back here and position, or here, and position accordingly along this boardwalk now that they don't have a widow. Otherwise, being able to position along this sill here, like, or edge, whatever you want to call this, with the pylon still here, or somewhat here. Again, if it's not super important to commit to any one position, because as long as you're proactive in breaking it, you should be able to stop them ever really messing up your rhythm with it. But we're a bit closer to my timestamp now, so I will forward ahead to that. 9 minutes. A little bit of positioning. Again, it's could very much just be more of a playtime on the hero thing. But I think you need to be forcing them to dislodge you from places like this and this. And if you can put the pylon inside here against this wall, like on the inside of the doorway, so that you just have to move backwards to get LOS of it and healing of it. Or if you're able to, say, position somewhere like here and have the pylon up here, or even like up here tucked away, that might actually be easy for them to get because of the LOS. But my point today is like somewhere, like how are they going to break it if it's here, man? Like you throw it this way, like obviously yeah, like it makes it difficult for you to get LOS of it as well, but being able to rotate back to here and still get healing. You could also, for that very reason, put it against this back wall, right? Like, where can they really shoot it from? But it can always see you. So sometimes it's not always like the typical spot is like, oh, put it here, and sure, like that can get value, and I'm not saying that's a bad spot by any means, but sort of the trap is to get stuck into constantly throwing it against walls that they can't see from this position, whereas it's like, well, yeah, they can see this wall, but they can't see it when there's this pillar in front of it unless they're on top of me, but it can always see me while I can see them. So don't rule out those things. But again, just like positioning in this fight, you're not very threatening. Yeah, you're putting out damage, and yeah, you can find some picks because of Illari's pick potential, but we're not being very threatening, and all of the resources are going onto our monkey because we're not forcing any onto us. This may have been the shield ult. I'll rewind it a bit. Oh yeah, it just nicked it. But be careful about going for these big ults, these big team ults. Especially since it doesn't go through shields. You know, I think everyone sort of got scared of it at launch. Because they were like, oh my god, this does so much damage, it hits everyone, it slows. People are now like, oh, you can cleanse it, you can have individual abilities like Fade and Wraith and stuff like that, cleanse it, you can bubble it, you can just sometimes just straight out heal it, like you can get exploded and then that's the worst of it. So 3 things to use it for, 3 things to use Illari ult for. 1 is to win 1v1s. 2, counter aggression. Counter aggro. I'll just get rid of that. And then 3 is combo ults. And this is I want to call it dot combo. Not dot combo, let's call it pressure combo. And burst combo. And again, I plan on making a video on this and I'll go a bit more in depth, but just to run it down really quickly, it's a great tool for winning 1v1s. That Genji before that was 1v1ing you, really easy to just wipe him out. Very good if you know that that 1v1 is an important 1v1, like that Genji was close to Blade or something like that, or they have a key ultimate that you're trying to get rid of, or you're trying to force out. You can trade an ultimate for an ultimate. So it's great at 1v1s. I'll get rid of the win, and I'll just say it's great for 1v1s in general because you might just be ult trading. 2 is to counter aggression. Think of Kiriko ult, window ult, like Baptiste window, something like that, right? Or even Nano Blade, like think of the slow effect that it has on people. He can't get his dash resets. That's a bit niche and probably quite specialist, but that's a use for it. Third, and most common, those 2 are probably less so than the combos, is to combine it with something else. Now, combining it with the classic one at the moment is Terra Surge, Orissa's ult, because it pulls them all together, makes them slow, yours makes them slow, does a lot of damage. Hers does the burst damage, sets off all the explosions. That's the essence of the combination. It's great at pairing with things like that, things with high burst potential, so like Overcharge, Sojourn's ult, EMP potentially, something like that. Anything that can set off and trigger the explosions and do like a lot of burst damage in quick succession. Often timed and always in the mid-fight as well because cooldowns have been used. The other combination and less common is what I was pointing at the wrong one before. That was burst. The other one, pardon me, is pressure. And that, I think, is Annihilation. Remartrolts, something like Coalescence even, anything that is, or Visor, anything that is a, not necessarily a slow damage over time, because this Captive Sun effect only lasts about 7 seconds, I think, but it's more about using up that 7 seconds, and it's not necessarily about triggering it, but abusing the slow effect and punishing their grouped upness with another space controlling ultimate. So it could even be Torbolt as well. But something like Annihilation is they start to feel that pressure of like, oh my god, I've got the Captive Sun effect on me. Oh, I'm slowed from it as well. Oh, now I'm stuck in Remartrol. Like, it's pressure, pressure, pressure. They're taking damage, like chip amounts of damage, but it's all stacking with each other, and it causes the explosion as well. And that you could do preemptively. You could do that as an engage ult, but it's still, it's a little trickier to pull off. It's a little more counterable, a bit more coordination than just a combo / when you're in ranked and you can't rely on combinations until higher up, at least, then these two options are great. Saving it to counter something, or like to counter with your own level of aggression that it has, / winning 1v1s, another great option. So think about that, because yeah, it would have been nice to like hit this and Winston's in and he gets a lot of cleave and stuff like that. But also, Moira almost has ult. Maybe if you're on an off angle, you shoot her, force out her fade, you Captive Sun her, you get her out, you just traded a support ult for a support ult in that team fight. And it's overtime. So that might be said and done. They may not get a Coalescence, and then they don't have any other ultimates. Obviously, hindsight's a great thing, but the logic stands. But yeah, those were the main things I had to talk about. Obviously, I did watch the rest of this, and it is similar on attack as well, because we spend most of our time sitting here in main and like pushing with our tank, and never really, it might be that like we sort of swing around here once we get to this point, but we could have been up here the whole time with Pylon here, jiggle picking this angle, or even you just like quickly get across this space with Outburst, and then all of a sudden, you know, you have all of this room to work with, and you're throwing Pylon here and you're jiggle picking here, and then they damage you, so you run away, you get healing, you break Pylon, you throw it back to here, and then you're taking a duel here, but then you've still won all this space by doing that. So think about that. Those are the big things. I hope it all makes sense. If it doesn't, because I may have been throwing a bunch of things at you all at once, being a new hero and whatnot, just let me know. But yeah, hopefully that advice helps, and look forward to making the Illari vid, and all the best with your games.